afternoon, everyone. Some energy in this room. Good. Okay. Good. So what I'm going to talk to you about today. So I had a call from our PR team a couple of days ago, and they said, Tom, we've got to do a kind of review of the year blog post and a kind of looking out to next year blog post. Can you tell us what the trends are, what's going on in the world of digital marketing? And so I started to build out some of the things that I have seen and we've seen happen in our industry this year. And what I want to do is talk through that. I think, at Salesforce, we have kind of a unique view in the sense that being one of the world's leading CRM and leading marketing platforms, we work with thousands of businesses, small, medium, large, thousands of businesses across different industries. And what we're trying to do is distill down what are the things that some of our marketing customers are doing. So I'm going to talk to you about some of the things that we're seeing happening from our viewpoint as a very large technology provider in the industry, and the conversations that we have with customers, with CMOs, with chief digital officers and so forth, and try and talk to you through some of these key sort of trends that I see. And so what I want to talk to you through is not just it as a trend, but also how are some of our customers, some of the brands that we're working with, applying some of these things. Right, so really I want to talk to you about just setting the scene and what we see the world through our lens at Salesforce. Then a bit about AI, because I think that if there were three kind of major trends this year, one's Brexit, two is Trump, and three is AI. So I think we can talk about that extensively, but I do want to kind of talk about, well, what does AI really mean, and what are marketers doing with it today, and how does it affect marketers? Mad tech, if you don't know what that means, in our world as technology providers, it's kind of the amalgamation of marketing technology and advertising technology, and that's not necessarily interesting to you as marketers, but what is interesting is why. Why are those things coming together? Why is Salesforce and the other technology providers in the industry seeing this happen? Why is there investment happening here, and M&A and everything? And then lastly, on kind of transformation and customer experience, two extraordinary buzzwords, but also it's really the truth that's happening in the industry. So I want to talk through you a couple of examples that I think represent true kind of transformation and true focus on the customer experience, which are really interesting. Just setting the scene. So if any of you has anyone ever been to a Salesforce event before and seen us speak and talk about this type of thing? And put your hands up. Nobody. Wow, that's great. Okay, so at Salesforce, we have a big event called Dreamforce. 170,000 people come to San Francisco to kind of, it's like the Glastonbury of techies, right? And what we do before that event, we kind of, Mark Benioff, our CEO, kind of thinks, well, what's the next major wave of trends and technology that's happening in the world, and kind of how do we see that? And we've historically talked about things like cloud, social, mobile, and to be honest, these things down here, like mainframe, client server, I'm not qualified to talk about because they didn't really exist, when I was born, or they. So I can really only talk about the cloud part. But I think, Salesforce as a company was built on the cloud, and Mark Benioff created the company to make software and buying software just as easy as buying a book on Amazon. And he basically created the cloud. And then we've seen these big transformations happening in the industry through social and through mobile with 6 billion devices. This isn't new to you, really. But then in the recent couple of years, there's this whole transition to connected devices and Internet of Things. And I think now that we've come to the year of AI in 2016, it's dealing with all of the data that's being created by these other waves, right? We got cloud creating a whole bunch of data. You've got social creating a whole bunch of data. You've got mobile creating a whole bunch of data, connected devices. And we are struggling as marketers or as technology people to really understand what to do about that. And I think AI is the answer to that. It is making sense of all that data that's created by these waves and trying to make sense of it for us as consumers and marketers. And how that kind of pans out, again, in the world of marketing, again, what we're seeing, and this is not new to you, but definitely a change in language that we're hearing from marketers is that, we've gone from broadcast, pray and spray, to digital marketing where everything can be tracked almost to the extent that it's too much, to what Keith Weed at Unilever talks about in terms of marketing in a digital world, not digital marketing. And now what we're hearing our customers talk about is the concept of one-to-one journeys. And we talked about it a little bit in the previous presentation about that one-to-one marketing concept. And that's really now a conversation that we're having with a lot of our marketing customers is, don't think about digital marketing, think about what's the journey you're taking a customer on, and what happens pre and post the sale if there's a sale within that. And think about things like, well, if you're going to be advertising to a customer on Facebook, you better make sure that they don't have a customer service case open and that you're marketing to them while they're not happy. How do you make sure that your sales rep is integrated into all the kind of marketing campaigns that you're running? So, connecting service and sales and marketing together is the kind of conversation that we're having with our customers. So I think, again, these trends and the move to one-to-one marketing is really driven a lot by the social and the mobile and AI and the thought that we need to think about broadly about the customer experience, which I'll talk about later as well. But what about AI? So as I said, it's been a major trend this year in many different aspects. You have, Watson doing a lot. We have Salesforce announcing Einstein. You have things like Amazon Echo and the Google Home. All these things being announced this year, and it's really kind of been the year of it. And why is this important for marketers, and why is this important for us? Is that if we're marketing to consumers, today we kind of expect an experience that we get from AI, but actually we don't know it. So, Siri is very much the natural language processing part of AI, right? And we expect to be able to talk to our phone and to give us responses. The recommendations that you get on Amazon or within Amazon Echo are the machine learning part of AI, so learning about purchase behavior and giving a response. The facial recognition in photos on Facebook is the deep learning part of AI. And so really if I was to explain AI and what it's built up by, it is natural language processing, machine learning, and deep learning. And why this is relevant for you, for people as marketers, is, well, we expect this type of experience every day on our phones. And so as marketers, we need to think about how do we deliver on that expectation that consumers have. Again, just a brief kind of insight into what we've been doing around AI, because I think it's kind of important to see the big shift that's happening in the industry in technology. So Salesforce over the last couple of years has invested just shy of $1.5 billion on companies that are founded upon machine learning, deep learning, and artificial intelligence. Because what we've seen is that our customers, our marketers, our sales customers, our customer care customers are actually wanting those types of AI-driven experiences. So some really interesting companies, a company called MetaMind that we acquired, which does some amazing stuff around image recognition, which I'll talk to you about and show you in a minute, and some really cool stuff with Relate IQ, where we've built that into an inbox for sales reps, which helps them plan their day. It helps them use their inbox as essentially a CRM system. and predicts, what meetings to set up, what customers to contact, how to contact them, what content in an email you should respond to a prospect, and those types of things that can really help with a sales rep be more productive. But I think you're going to see a lot of an increase in these technology providers like ourselves in investing in AI to help people be more productive and be smarter. So, but what does it mean to marketers? What does data science really mean to marketers? It's really, again, what we do as marketers is really no different. We think about audience, we think about channel, we think about content, we think about timing. It's the right time, right channel, right message. But when I think about how AI can help with this, AI can help with, okay, which audience is the right one to send this to? Do I have to do a bunch of old school research and segmentation and getting my marketing team in a room to think about what my segment should be? Or could AI help decide what audience is the right audience to target? Again, with channel, right, do we understand which customers prefer which channel? Is that just because we say, all right, well, mobile is important, so we have to invest in mobile? Or is it, social is important, so we have to invest there? Or could AI actually help us decide which channel to send our email campaign to or a mobile campaign to? Timing is another thing. An interesting thing that we've brought out within Salesforce is which is called send time optimization. It's basically, when should I send this email campaign out to a customer? And the AI engine will say, it should be 3 o'clock on a Friday because of this, and we will send that out for you. So that takes away the thought of, I need to plan my campaign to run at 3 p.m. and set it for that. AI will just decide. And the same with content. Which content is going to be more successful? So I think of all artificial intelligence won't replace our jobs. It won't change how we market necessarily. What it will do is help with this whole concept of right time, right audience, right message. I talked about MetaMine, and one of the really interesting things that I find fascinating about what we've been doing at Salesforce is what we call predictive vision. So traditionally, social marketing teams are kind of tasked with the concept of, tell me about engagement in social. How engaged are our consumers with our brand on social? And they would use a social listening tool or a social media monitoring tool and kind of find out where all the mentions and the hashtags of our brand are, and kind of go back to management and say, all right, we've had this much engagement this month. The problem with that is that, I don't always tag the brands that I take photos of. I often take photos where a brand will be represented in that picture, and I will share that, and that will get exposed to my graph. But what AI can do is we can essentially say, okay, in this picture, which has not been tagged with Nike or with football or anything, we can throw that into the service, and it is able to understand the brand on the football is Nike, the object is a football, the other object is boots or socks, the scene is sports, is football, and it's outdoor. So what we can do is we can throw images into an AI system and start to categorize them and classify them. So we can see, so the Nike social marketing team essentially can see, actually, we've got a whole lot more engagement on social than we thought, or a whole lot more exposure of our brand than we initially thought, because we're able to track and look at the actual pixels and understand everything in those images. So it's just another way of kind of enhancing our social engagement. One of the customers that we're working with that it's doing some cool stuff around AI is a brand called Fanatics. They actually own the brand Kitbag, and they run the e-commerce stores for about 500 different sports brands. So the NBA brands, you can buy all the jerseys online. The Real Madrid, Barcelona, Chelsea, you can buy the kits online for them. So they run the sites and the marketing for all of these different brands. They only have a team of 5 people in their campaign marketing team, yet they have to support these 500 brands. sending 4 billion emails and running 27,000 email campaigns. So what they're doing is they're beta testing our AI technology to understand, okay, how do I automate all of that and scale that? Because we only have a team of 5, and I want to make sure that I'm sending the right email to the Barcelona fans, to the Real Madrid fans, etc. And I've got these different segments, and I have to send 27,000, and I've got 4 billion customers to send it to. So how can AI help me understand which customers to send to and when? So they've got things like the send time capability working, which says, okay, I have to set, AI will tell me that I need to send my Barcelona email campaign out at 11 p.m. on a Saturday after the game in Spain. Whereas in the US, after a Lakers game, I send it at 6 p.m., right? But they don't have to set that. The AI basically starts to understand that for them and predict when they should be sending it. So one of the things that we're definitely seeing is that artificial intelligence can help marketers kind of be more productive as well. So what about mad tech? So advertising technology, we're obviously seeing a huge transition towards spend on social channels. So the rise of identity-based advertising, and by identity-based advertising, I essentially mean Facebook, Instagram, the ability to market to an individual as an identity rather than to a mass market. And what's happening in the market? Well, it's a $10.5 billion pound industry in the UK, currently 40% on search, 25 on open display, and 16 on audience platforms. That number is going to grow significantly if you look at the growth of Facebook in terms of the spend and the transition towards those audience platforms. I would expect next year to, that to shoot up towards the open display platforms. So currently, the split is we're still very search heavy, but we're also getting a significant growth within these audience platforms. But one of the interesting things, and if you're interested in the ad industry and tracking what's going on, this is a really great article around advertising's century of flat growth. It essentially argues that advertising has only grown with inflation in its entire history. So you've seen like the financial industry and everything grow beyond standard inflation, but actually the argument here is that it's not. It's just flat with standard inflation. But what's obvious is that everything is transitioning and flipping around. So we're just moving budget from TV to now into digital and now into open display. So if you look at the right-hand side here, the share of the internet in 2012, so share of internet advertising budgets, very similar to what it was for radio pre-TV. So the whole kind of concept of this advertising industry, that massive growth in digital is at the detriment to the other channels. But I think what's really interesting with the previous presentation is now we're at a point where we can start to complement each other with the, tracking the impact of a TV ad on search. I think is a really interesting concept where when the digital advertising industry was nascent, it was just like, oh, we're going to throw all our budget into digital and forget about TV. That's not the case. These need to be integrated. And actually, this represents kind of the industry today. It's a very balanced industry. But so what is happening in the world of kind of the mad tech and ad tech stuff? So we're seeing Snapchat, for example, announced that it is now into really investing in fine-tuned targeting for Snapchat. So things like how do you use your existing email database to throw into Snapchat and find customers that look like your existing customers. And they're investing in how you can actually use your existing first-party data to target people on Snapchat. And I think we'll see more and more of these ID-based platforms invest in that, as Facebook has done. Another interesting one that we saw the other day is Instagram has announced the fact that you can now shop for the products you see in your feed. I looked at this and I remember, and like YouTube did this like 10 years ago and said, yeah, we're going to be able to, you're going to watch a YouTube video and you're going to see a woman walking down the street with a handbag and you'll be able to click it and buy it. And it never really took off. And I think this will be a very interesting thing to follow. And I think from our point of view as a technology provider that kind of underpins some of this, it is a lot easier now. So if you're able to, if you have this kind of Instagram feed with the handbag here and it says, you know, this is 110 quid, click on it. Previously, it would take you to some other realm of horrible e-commerce website where you had to log in and it was just a horribleness. I think now with the technology behind it, this could become easy in reality. It will be interesting to see, because then if we think about the customer journey, particularly in a retail context, you know, I'm scrolling through my feed, I see a photo, I see something I like, I hit it, I buy, and that journey is like 30 seconds long. It could essentially be 30 seconds long, and that's really interesting in terms of transformation of how somebody goes from discovery to purchase in a very, very short space of time. The problem we're seeing around advertising online there's a lot of issues, right? I think where we see customers having challenges is like 60% of mobile display ads clicks are accidental, because you're kind of trying to figure out, I actually want to access the content and you're accidentally clicking the banner. We're seeing customers saying to us, like I said before, how do I make sure that I'm not advertising to a customer who's already bought my product or who potentially has a customer service issue? So these are challenges that just couldn't be solved before. Customer data is not secure. I've heard stories where people have taken a bunch of customer data, put it on a USB and uploaded it manually to Facebook. That's very, very problematic. So even though there's this big investment in digital advertising, there's still a lot of challenges that we see our customers having. So just a couple of examples of people that are doing some interesting stuff around social advertising and connecting it to your first-party data. So there's a banking company called Capital One. I think most people know them. They both advertise to us as consumers, but they also advertise to small business owners to give them loans. And so what they've decided to do is take all the existing customer data they have about their small business owners, which is like email address and the sort of CRM data, and then say, okay, I want to make sure that I use that data to target new customers on Facebook. So they use that data, they integrate it with Facebook and say, find me customers that look like these customers, right? That portray the same attributes as my existing customer base. But don't advertise to the ones that already match it, right? Which sounds like a kind of pretty simple concept, but it's actually very difficult to do. And they're having good success because they're able to immediately target the right customers, but be efficient in it and not waste money on actually showing an ad to an existing customer or showing to someone who doesn't use it. What they're also doing is they're making sure that age-old problem of, you know, when you click on something online and you buy it and then the ad follows you around the internet all the time and it's really annoying, retargeting. So they've solved that problem because what they can do is say, okay, when a customer clicks and when a customer buys, even if they buy offline, my sales rep inside my CRM system can say, deal is closed, and that makes sure that that customer is taken outside of the advertising audience. So you make sure that even if it's an offline conversion or an offline transaction, that they will never advertise to you if you've already bought that product. And again, a very kind of simple thing that we experience every day online, but something that's quite tricky to do if you don't have all the pipes connected. So I think what's really interesting with Capital One is like actually using that existing CRM data, and this is again what we're seeing in the industry is you're taking that first-party data, you're blending it with Facebook's audience network and their great amount of third-party data, and amalgamating it together to find those new customers. Scotch and Soda is another one that's doing some cool stuff around CRM and advertising. So they're actually seeing kind of a 9x return on their investment on social, so being more efficient. We've done a lot of studies with our retail customers in terms of those who are actually investing in an email campaign and an advertising campaign on social at the same time with the same message. And when those two work together, we'll actually see kind of a 22% increase in conversion. So this comes back to that kind of customer journey thing. Let's make sure we think about how our email campaigns are coordinated with our social ad campaigns to drive conversion. Okay, so next is kind of the transformation piece, and I think a few of the topics today have been around like how has some of these businesses transformed, and our business at Salesforce has really kind of been successful because of the transformations that are happening in the industry, and every single customer I talk to in all the different industries talks about the customer journey and how my customer is changing, how we should think about our business. So I was talking to a hearing aid company recently, and I said, well, what does your customer journey look like? And he said, well, actually it's about 7 years long, our customer journey, from the very first moment that you think you might have a hearing problem and that we start to kind of feed you with content and everything, to the fact that you then end up buying the hearing aid. So we have a 7-year-long customer journey, and we have to think about that as how do we transform our kind of marketing to fit with that journey and give them and drip feed them the content over time, knowing that that's how long it is. And then you talk to like a retailer, and as I said, with the Instagram example, the customer journey could be a 30-second long one, right? And that is changing the way that they think about their business. How do I make it super, super easy for you to transact as quick as possible? And then another conversation in the same event, I was talking to the chief digital officer of a large consumer packaged goods company, and he was like, we don't even have a customer journey. We don't know who our customers are. Because in a consumer packaged goods company, you're selling through retailers and wholesalers, and you don't have that direct relationship with the customer. So they're investing in e-commerce and digital marketing because they need to acquire that customer information. So I think those are just kind of 3 examples of very, very different customer journeys, but things that are impacting change within these organizations. And when I talk to marketers as well, we're starting to see this fragmentation within the marketing teams with different goals, but also a change around the customer. So you have your email marketing team, which has growing my subscriber list, and mobile marketing, which is driving app installs, social, improving my share of voice, paid, driving awareness and cost efficiency. The challenge that we have around this is not all of these are focusing around the customer, and I think that's what us as marketers need to kind of figure out. How do we transform our team to focus around the customer, not just around these kind of individual sort of productivity and efficiency goals? We surveyed this year 4,000 of our customers worldwide and asked them, what do you think about transformation? What do you think about the customer experience? And the ones that said, hey, we're doing great, we think we're a super high-performing marketing team and we're doing amazingly well, we are leading the customer experience across the business. Now, I think this is a really, really interesting topic that I always ask sort of marketing leaders. Are you driving, if you've got a customer experience initiative, are you as marketing driving it? Or is it customer care? Or is it the CEO? Or is it the CDO? Or is it the CMO? Marketers I see kind of driving a lot of that, and they're saying they are. The same with transformation, digital transformation. Those ones who think that they're doing very well as a marketing team, they also think that they're driving the digital transformation within their company. And I think because of that customer focus, because of that, the fact that they've done marketers are doing a huge transition towards digital, they're best placed to kind of implement and run this. And I think it's a big shift that we're seeing. One of the great stories I think is around transformation is a company called Mattel, who a lot of you may know. They have Thomas the Tank Engine is one of their brands, Barbie, Hot Wheels, and obviously a very old school toy company, 125 years old. They just sold the little kind of the toy cars that you could buy in early learning center, whatever, and they weren't kind of digital. So they went on this big transformation. It's like, how do we understand more about our customers in a digital world? So they started to think about two things, about the life journey and about how to digitize our business. So they saw that, as a young kid, they would play with perhaps Thomas the Tank Engine fairly early, but then as they got older, they would play with Hot Wheels. But they had separate marketing teams for both, but realized, well, why are we not making sure that as that kid gets older, or as the parents are customers of ours, that we can transition one kid from one brand to another? So they started to think about this life journey and how they're relevant at different steps in the journey, and how does our marketing reflect that? So they would do things like, how do I kind of upsell one brand to another? On the digital side, when you buy a Hot Wheels little car, you can also scan the QR code on the back and get a Hot Wheels app. You sign in for that. You've given the data to Mattel, and you start to connect the digital and physical. So that's a really, really interesting kind of transformation that I've seen around the kind of digital physical and the thinking around the lifetime journey. Final one is KLM. I always like to talk about this one because they do a great job around social. They're kind of seen as the pioneer around social customer service and social customer care. Their marketing team and their service team are really transforming around Messenger. So Facebook announced Messenger last year, and this really changes how a business thinks about interaction with a customer, right? Because what you can now do with KLM is you can book a flight, you can check your points, you can complain, you can get feedback from a customer care representative, all within one app. And so for them, it's like, well, what part of that is marketing, and what part of that is customer service, and what part of that is e-commerce? They're all the same thing. It's all one interaction in one app for the customer. So they've started to really push their teams together to think about, how do I get e-commerce, service, marketing all together to make this work? Because the future interaction around things like booking flights and everything is really just going to be an in-app experience. Just think about like how sort of the transformation that's happening within that business to kind of make this experience happen. So I'm nearly out of time, but what I hope to share with you is some kind of the viewpoints from us as a big technology provider in the industry that sees a lot of these things happening across the industry. I think what to kind of sum up, I think what we're seeing is the kind of cross-channel customer journey mentality is becoming the norm now. What's changing within that is that advertising is really becoming part of that. I think AI is going to really change how marketers work. But things like, how are you going to be relevant within the context of Amazon Echo and Google Home is an interesting concept that marketers really need to explore. And then transformation. We are guilty of talking about transformation being a technology thing only, but I think the hardest part of it all is the kind of cultural and team change thing. And definitely we're seeing, how those teams are transforming within the marketing organization around kind of these big transformation projects. So that's how I would summarize it. I'm definitely out of time because I'm being told. I hope that's useful to you. Let me know if there's any questions. I'm hanging around for a little bit longer. So thanks a lot.